Mothers don't have the hardest job in the world. Period. I was walking through Target looking for cards to get my mom for Mother's Day. I saw one that said, "Thank you for doing the hardest job in the world." Don't get me wrong, I appreciate my mother and everything she has done for me, but hardest job in the world, seriously. If half the population has the hardest job in the world, it's not the hardest job in the world. Come on, Karen, I mean, stop complaining about having to watch Frozen and playing with your kids at the park. Oh, the misery, poor you for having to sit in the sun and relax while you watch you kids. That sounds more like a vacation than the world's most difficult job. A hard job is the Navy SEAL that has to see his buddies die in combat while he wonders why he made it out alive, or the coal miner who is getting cancer by exposing himself to toxic gases just to put food on the table for his family. Yes, mothers are great and deserve respect, but hardest job on the planet is not a title for mothers. If any other job had a similar first day, I'd quit on the spot. There's definitely harder jobs, but comparing motherhood to a job seems off. Anyone can understand how some people would quit a hard job. But no matter how hard it is, quitting motherhood has irreversible consequences that ripple throughout the family. I wouldn't say it is the hardest job in the world, but from my understanding, motherhood comes with a lot of worry, anxiety, sacrifices and heartbreak. It isn't rainbows and butterflies and watching Frozen all the time. If parenting is watching Frozen and going to the park, then I'm sure you have a point. If it's to raise some awesome humans that can cut it, then it's difficult. Nobody is sitting here thinking about all the jobs and saying, does this add up to motherhood? It's an appreciation phrase. It's like, thanks for taking care of me when I needed your care at 3 a.m. Thanks for making sure I was safe even when I fought against you as a teenager. Like, I'd say most moms aren't like, yes, my job as a mom is harder than manual labor. They're like, God, being a mom is hard. Being a mom is easy if you suck at it and do a shitty job of it, and many moms do, in fact, suck at it. But if you want to do it really well and end up with children who are properly prepared to be high-functioning adults, then it is a very demanding and often thankless job. No one thinks it's the hardest job in the world, but anyone who thinks it's not a hard job, has their head up their ass. Now, I'm child-free, so people just naturally assume I hate children and think mothers are idiots, but that's not true. I just would rather work my 9-to-5 job in child protection where everyday parents are abusing their kids, because it's easier than actually raising my own kids. I work for 8 hours, but then I come home, I watch TV, cook dinner, and hang out with my partner. On weekends I do whatever I want. It's no comparison to raising kids. Also, let's not pretend like every mother is the same. Obviously it's not that hard if you're rich and your kids are half raised by a nanny and you have everything you need and don't work. But it's very hard if you can barely afford a roof over your head while you raise 4 kids under 10 and one or more of them have a disability. It's very different. I was in the middle. My mother was physically disabled in an accident and couldn't work, so raised 3 kids on my father's low-income wage. We managed, but it wasn't easy. It's all about experience too. You can't compare something you know how to do, to something you don't. If you chucked a mother of 3 into an engineering job, of course the job would be hard. But if you gave the childless engineer 3 kids and said, now parent these kids well, they'd be dreaming for their engineering days. How about we just agree that most people are doing the best they can and stop pushing certain groups down to make others feel better about themselves and make themselves look good? Not sure if this is unpopular, but I agree based on the fact that this is all nonsense pushed to make corporations money. It's literally just pandering to the target audience, nothing more. I don't think any reasonable person honestly thinks being a mother is actually the hardest job. It's just a sentiment. You see, being the hardest job part comes after you've been working a 14-hour day to put food on the table for your kids. I agree mothers don't have the hardest job, mainly because it's not a job, but if you think all they have to do is watch Frozen with their children and sit and relax in the sun while the kids play, well, if that's the case, then you are delusional. This sounds like the Bill Burr bit LOL, but true. I think moms just want to feel appreciated more than once a year for the things they do. I like how the implication in this post is that a mother equals Karen. I mean, sure, I get your point, and upvoted for being an unpopular opinion. And, yeah, it's not hard to make sure your kid doesn't die. Merely survives. But how easy is it to teach them to thrive? To actually slow down, stop, and take the time and energy to guide them through the shit feelings and the crazy social and physical dynamics that as a kid you've never felt before into the fullest expression of themselves. In order to steer society to a more integrated, loving, balanced experience means transforming the way we raise our kids. No, that's not the hardest job in the world, compared to, say, being forced into slave labor on a fishing vessel in Southeast Asia with no hope of ever contacting your loved ones again. But it is fucking hard. I agree that it's not actually the hardest job in the world. In fact, it's not really even a job, it's just a lifestyle really. But it definitely doesn't look easy. I would personally rather do pretty much any job that's super hard than to be a mother. Grave digger, sewage pipe cleaner, like whatever, than to be a mommy, because while it might not be physically taxing, it seems like a mental nightmare and a complete loss of personal identity. And when you think of it as the tragedy that it is, it does seem pretty hard. And it is pretty much endless. Also, from my perspective as someone who grew up completely motherless, no stepmoms or aunts or anything, it does seem like a pretty important job too. More important than plenty of other jobs. Still, being a mom isn't a job, it's just a life choice, and being a mother is the hardest job in the world is a stupid and petty phrase that should die out because it leaves out any nuance for stupid moms who take it so literally. People talking about the difficulty of motherhood aren't talking about school-age kids or kids old enough to talk. They're talking about endless sleep deprivation, nursing with bleeding nipples, losing bladder control, back spasms as the body rebuilds from the damage of pregnancy, and having to use the bathroom while holding a colicky infant, often without any acknowledgement or support from their partner, whether he stuck around or not. Guys in these comments claiming a father's role starts in the preteen years, WTF. Women who have good support networks and easy recoveries don't claim motherhood is super difficult or talk about sacrifice. 5-year-olds and older? They're so easy you can stick 30 of them in a classroom together and everyone is still alive 8 hours later. 3-year-olds can be completely potty trained and an absolute delight. 2-year-olds are dramatic as hell and hilarious. But babies can be a source of endless need and desperation at a time when women are weaker and sicker than they've been before. The truth is that motherhood can be a lot of fun, but it doesn't start out that way. There are very few jobs that rip open your genitals. If you're reaching for Navy SEALs to prove there are harder jobs, then you're acknowledging the job is pretty difficult.